The roar of an engine echoes down the open road, a sound that signifies freedom, power, and adventure. But for one rider, it also represents a battle. A battle not just with the asphalt beneath her tires, but with the world that tells her she doesn't belong. In a world dominated by voices that try to silence her, one Black woman sets out to prove them all wrong. This is a story of courage, of resilience, and of defying the odds. Meet Maya. She's not just any rider. She's a symbol of strength in a world that often overlooks her. From the moment she threw her leg over her bike and twisted that throttle for the first time, she knew the road was more than just a place for joyrides. It was a place where she could claim her space, despite the prejudices she faced. In a sport where Black women are often unseen, Maya's presence is a statement that her place is on the road, fighting for respect and recognition. But the road hasn't been easy. Maya's journey has been filled with moments that could break anyone's spirit. From the hateful looks to the harsh words, the sneers, and the doubting glances, the obstacles she faces aren't just physical. They come from a deep-seated racism that runs through the motorcycle world. A world where people still think a Black woman doesn't belong, where the idea of her riding with confidence, power, and control is met with doubt, mockery, and sometimes outright hostility. At first, Maya thought she could ignore the negativity. She would ride with her helmet on, her focus solely on the road, hoping that the sound of the engine would drown out the voices trying to tear her down. But it wasn't enough. She could feel the judgment in every whisper, in every sideways glance. They tried to tell her she wasn't cut out for this, that a woman, let alone a Black woman, didn't belong on a motorcycle. But Maya wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. She found herself facing an unspoken war, one where every mile she rode was another step in the fight for respect. And the more she rode, the more she realized it wasn't just about the bike. It wasn't just about the speed or the thrill of the ride. It was about proving that no matter who you are, no matter your race or gender, you have the right to chase your dreams and live them out loud. The challenges Maya faced were bigger than just her. They were a reflection of a society still grappling with issues of race and gender. And she was determined to change the narrative, one ride at a time. But Maya wasn't alone in this fight. Along the way, she met others who shared her passion for the open road. Some were fellow riders who encouraged her to keep going, to push through the hard times. Others, however, were the very people who fueled her fire, the ones who tried to bring her down. They were the doubters, the haters, the ones who saw her ambition as a threat. They mocked her for riding in a world they thought she didn't belong in, reminding her of every stereotype they could muster. But Maya didn't flinch. She fought back, not with words, but with actions. Every time she revved her engine and tore down that road, she was making a statement. As time passed, Maya became more than just a rider. She became an icon, a symbol of what it means to fight for your space in a world that constantly tells you that you're not enough. With every ride, she proved that she was worthy of respect, that she wasn't just a woman on a bike, but a force to be reckoned with. But that didn't mean the hate disappeared. In fact, the more recognition Maya gained, the more vicious the attacks became. One night, after a major race where she placed second, Maya found herself on the receiving end of a hateful message, a message so vile it made her question everything she had fought for. It wasn't just a message, though. It was a symbol of the forces she was up against. And yet, instead of letting it break her, it lit a fire in her chest. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. For every person who had been doubted, dismissed, and ignored. That night, as she sat in the darkness, reading the words over and over again, Maya made a decision. She would take that hate, turn it into fuel, and use it to propel herself forward. She would rise above it all, and in doing so, show the world that there was nothing that could stop her. But just as she prepared to face her biggest challenge yet, something unexpected happened. Something that would change everything she thought she knew about the road ahead. As the sun rose the next day, Maya found herself facing a crossroads, one that would test her resolve and her faith in the very community she had fought so hard to become a part of. What she would discover in the coming days would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, her journey, and the world around her. And just when she thought she had faced it all, something even bigger awaited her, something that would either break her or make her stronger than ever before. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Maya's battle is just beginning, and the road ahead is filled with twists and turns that no one could have predicted. Would she rise above the hate, or would the weight of the world's judgment finally break her? Find out in the next part of this incredible journey. The days after Maya received the hateful message were some of the hardest she had ever faced. It wasn't just the words. They cut deeper than anything she had experienced before. It was the realization that no matter how much she proved herself, there would always be someone out there trying to tear her down. The motorcycle community, which had started to embrace her for her skill and tenacity, suddenly felt like a battleground again. The very people she had fought alongside, those who had cheered her on, now seemed distant, silent even. Some had always been skeptical of her presence in their world, and now, with the growing attention surrounding her, the cracks were beginning to show. Maya sat in her garage, staring at her bike, lost in thought. The leather gloves that had once been a symbol of strength now felt heavy in her hands. She'd never been the type to back down from a challenge, but this was different. She had always known that riding as a Black woman would come with its own set of challenges, but the hate she had received felt more personal this time. It wasn't just about proving herself on the road anymore. It was about proving she deserved to exist in this space, as if she had to constantly fight for the right to be seen. The next morning, Maya met up with a few friends at a local diner. It was a quiet spot, far from the noise of the races and the judgment of others. Her closest friend, Tara, who had been with her from the very beginning, sat across from her, looking concerned. Tara knew Maya better than anyone. She could tell when Maya was fighting an internal battle, even if Maya didn't say a word. "You can't let them get to you," Tara said, her voice calm but firm. "They want to see you quit, but that's not who you are." Maya sighed, swirling the coffee in her cup. "I don't know anymore, Tara. It's exhausting. Every time I think I've earned my place here, someone reminds me that I'm just not supposed to be. And the people who should have my back, well, I don't know if they do." Tara leaned in, her eyes filled with determination. "Don't mistake silence for approval. You've got people behind you, real ones. The rest, they're just noise. You can't let them drown you out." Maya nodded, but the weight of doubt still hung heavy on her shoulders. The message was still fresh in her mind, each word a reminder of how far she had to go to be accepted. It wasn't just the trolls or the haters online that bothered her. It was the people in the community who acted like they didn't see her. The ones who would offer a polite nod, but nothing more. The ones who would let her pass without a second thought, as if her achievements weren't enough to be acknowledged. It wasn't until she received an invitation to a prestigious race that the true scale of the conflict began to unfold. The race was one of the biggest events of the year, attracting the top riders from all over the country. It was the kind of race that could solidify her place in the motorcycle world, or destroy it. She had always dreamed of competing, but now, with the hate she had received, there was more on the line than ever before. But as she prepared for the race, she began to notice something that unsettled her. A series of subtle, almost imperceptible actions, like whispered comments when she wasn't looking, or someone taking a little too long to shake her hand, as if unsure. It wasn't just that some riders didn't want her there. It was the tension that hung in the air, like a storm waiting to break. The more she trained, the more she felt it, like an invisible wall closing in around her. People who had once greeted her with enthusiasm now seemed to view her with suspicion, as if she were a threat, as if she didn't belong. One evening, while she was doing a final check on her bike, Maya overheard a conversation between two fellow racers. They didn't realize she was standing nearby, and their words hit her like a slap in the face. "She doesn't have the skill to keep up with us," one of them said, sneering. "She's just getting attention because of the color of her skin. She'll never make it." The other racer chuckled. "She'll crash out just like all the others. It's only a matter of time." Maya felt her heart drop. The words cut deeper than she'd ever imagined. She'd been through plenty of challenges in her life, but this wasn't just about proving she was good enough. This was about proving she had the right to even be there. The night before the race, Maya stood on the rooftop of her building, staring at the stars. She was surrounded by the city's noise, yet in that moment, everything felt quiet. She knew that tomorrow, everything would change. She couldn't let fear take control. Not now, not after everything she had fought for. But the weight of expectation was heavy. The world was watching her. She wasn't just racing for a trophy or for herself. She was racing to prove that a Black woman, no matter the obstacles, could stand tall and claim her place. When the day of the race arrived, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Riders lined up at the starting line, the engines of their bikes humming in the air. Maya's heart raced in time with the revving of the motorcycles. She was ready. But as she glanced around, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The tension from the past few weeks was palpable now. Everyone could feel it. The air was thick with it, a quiet hostility that threatened to boil over. Maya locked eyes with her closest competitor, a man named Jared who had always been cold to her. His eyes narrowed and his lips curled into a subtle, mocking grin. "You sure you're ready for this, Maya?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. The race would do the talking. She gripped her handlebars, the leather of her gloves familiar against her skin. And with a deep breath, she silenced the doubts that tried to creep into her mind. The starting gun went off, and the world exploded into motion. The bikes tore down the track, engines roaring, the crowd's cheers blending into the rush of wind in her ears. Maya pushed her bike harder than ever, feeling the power beneath her, every inch of the road now her battleground. She was no longer racing for herself. She was racing for every person who had been told they couldn't. For every person who had been made to feel small, invisible, less than. But as the final lap neared, a sharp turn ahead threatened everything she had worked for. Would she finish this race and silence her doubters? Or would this be the moment everything came crashing down? The tension was unbearable. As the final lap approached, Maya's heart hammered in her chest, and the roar of her engine became a steady, pulsing rhythm beneath her. The sharp turn ahead was coming fast, and it was her moment to shine, or to lose everything. The crowd's noise faded into the background as her focus narrowed to the track. She leaned into the turn, gripping her handlebars with everything she had. The bike responded perfectly, but just as she pulled out of the corner, she saw it. A flash of movement in her peripheral vision. Jared. He was coming up fast from behind, clearly trying to cut her off. The tension between them had been building all race, and now, at the most crucial moment, he was making his move. Maya's mind raced. She had to keep her cool, stay steady, and not let his tricks get to her. Jared had always been a skilled rider, but his tactics, his attitude, made him unpredictable. Maya wasn't just racing for the win anymore. She was racing for respect, for her place, for all the people who had doubted her. The gap between them closed quickly. Jared's bike roared with power, and he tried to cut her off at the next curve. He was so close, his elbow almost grazing her bike, but Maya wouldn't give in. With a quick maneuver, she swerved just enough to avoid his move and took control of the inside line. It was a risky move, dangerous even, but it was the only way she could hold her ground. As she straightened out of the turn, she could feel the gap between them widen, but Jared wasn't backing off. His speed was relentless, his gaze focused with the intensity of someone determined to break her spirit. The finish line loomed ahead, just a few hundred meters away. The tension in her chest tightened, her breath coming in quick bursts as she pushed harder. This was it, the final stretch, the moment she'd dreamed about since the first time she got on a bike. The crowd's roar reached a crescendo, but Maya blocked it all out. She didn't need the noise, she didn't need the pressure. She needed to stay in control. She needed to finish this race for herself, for everyone who believed in her, and for every rider who had ever been told they couldn't do it. Jared's bike was close again, but Maya was quicker this time. She flicked her wrist, pulling ahead just enough to keep him at bay. And as they approached the final turn, she knew it was now or never. She made the sharpest, most aggressive turn of her life, feeling her tires grip the road as she launched herself out of the corner with everything she had. The finish line was in sight, and with one final burst of power, Maya surged ahead, crossing the line in first place. The sound of her engine roared in triumph, drowning out the rest of the world. She had done it. The crowd exploded into cheers, and for the first time, Maya heard the respect in their voices. The kind of respect that came not from pity or token gestures, but from admiration. She had earned it. She had fought for it, tooth and nail. Jared crossed the line just behind her, his bike sputtering as he slowed to a stop. Maya kept her helmet on as she lifted her bike off the ground, but she could feel his eyes on her. He didn't speak a word, but the look he gave her was a mix of begrudging respect and disbelief. For the first time, he had been bested, not by a man, but by a woman who was told she didn't belong. A woman who proved them all wrong. Maya took a moment to catch her breath, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. She looked out at the crowd, and for a fleeting second, it all became clear. This wasn't just about racing anymore. It was about breaking barriers. It was about rewriting the rules and showing the world that no one, no matter their skin color or gender, should ever feel like they don't belong. The battle she had fought had been hard, but it was worth every ounce of effort. She had carved out her space on the track, not with words or complaints, but with action. As she dismounted her bike, Tara came rushing over, her arms wide open. "You did it," she exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. Maya smiled, feeling the weight of the journey lift off her shoulders. She had done it, for herself, for every woman who had been told she wasn't enough, and for every person who had ever been pushed aside. In that moment, the world felt like it had shifted just a little bit. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but Maya knew that she had set the stage for something bigger than herself. She had proven that the road to success wasn't just about the destination. It was about the courage to keep riding, to keep fighting, even when the world told you to stop. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the racetrack, Maya stood tall, her helmet now off, her hair blowing in the breeze. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead was hers to take, and this was only the beginning. There would be more races, more challenges, and more hate to face. But Maya knew now that nothing could break her. Her victory wasn't just about being the fastest rider. It was about showing the world that when you refuse to back down, when you stay true to who you are, you can win over the haters, silence the doubts, and make your mark on the world. She wasn't just a rider anymore. She was a force, unstoppable and undeniable. And as she looked toward the horizon, Maya couldn't help but smile. The road was long, but it was hers to ride.